I keep the house quiet now, as if silence were a kind of penance, as if by making the room smaller with hush I might somehow hear you again. The refrigerator hums like an animal trying not to be noticed. The clock over the sink ticks too loudly, so I take the batteries out and set them in the junk drawer with the keys that no longer open anything and the coins from countries we never visited together. I talk to you anyway. I say your name into the quiet the way some people say prayers, not because they believe they will be answered but because the saying itself keeps the body from collapsing inward. I say, I'm here, and sometimes, when I am feeling reckless, I'm sorry, and the words drift up toward the ceiling fan, which is turned off because the breeze reminds me of the way you used to pace when you were thinking, the way your hair would lift and fall against your cheek, that impatient rhythm I once found endearing and later misunderstood as defiance. You won't speak to me. I know this as a fact the way one knows the weather has changed. There is evidence everywhere, but it is not a single dramatic moment. It is the unopened messages, the calls that ring until voicemail answers with my own voice recorded years ago when you still lived here and I thought permanence was a thing you could capture in a greeting. It is the way your name has stopped appearing in my phone except when I type it, hoping muscle memory might conjure you. It is the ache that settles behind my eyes at dusk, the hour you used to call on your way home, narrating the day in fragments, asking what was for dinner even after you moved out, even after you learned to feed yourself. You won't speak to me, and the refusal has a sound, a low, endless note like the one you hear inside your head after something explodes too close. I replay our last conversation the way some people replay accidents, convinced that if I slow it down enough I will find the exact second where everything could have gone differently. I hear myself say your name too sharply. I hear the pause on the line, the inhale you took that sounded like a door closing. I hear you say, I can't do this, and me, foolish and frantic, asking what this meant, as if definitions could save us. I hear myself talking over you, not listening, stacking words like sandbags against a flood I refused to acknowledge. When the line went dead I stared at my phone as if it had betrayed me, as if it were not my own voice echoing back at me from the silence. There are days I am certain I understand why you have cut me off, and days when the reasons scatter like birds and I am left with nothing but the sky. I tell myself it began earlier, that it is never one thing. I remember you at 7, standing in the doorway with your backpack slipping off one shoulder, asking if I would come to the assembly, and me glancing at the calendar, at the red circles and arrows, saying, I'll try, as if trying were a substitute for being there. I remember you at 13, the way you learned to fold yourself inward when I asked questions that felt like inspections. I remember the argument when you were 17, the slammed door that rattled the picture frames, the words that flew between us like thrown plates. I remember telling myself that time would fix it, that distance would soften the edges, that love was a thing that survived on its own even when neglected. I remember believing that because believing it was easier than changing. I walk through the house and touch the objects that still carry you like a static charge. Your mug with the chipped rim, the one you insisted tasted better because of the flaw. The sweater you left draped over the chair, still smelling faintly of the soap you preferred, the one I bought for you after the argument about money when you accused me of control and I accused you of ingratitude and neither of us named the fear underneath. I put the sweater on sometimes and let it hang too long on my arms. I imagine you laughing at me, calling me dramatic. I imagine you telling me to stop, to give it back. I imagine anything that includes your voice. I have written you letters I do not send. I write them in the careful script I taught myself after you mocked my loops and flourishes, simplifying myself to be easier to read. I begin with neutral things, the weather, the neighbor's new dog, the way the light looks in the kitchen in the morning. Then I fail, every time, and the page fills with the old confessions, the apologies that feel both necessary and inadequate, the explanations that sound like excuses even to me. I tear them up and throw them away, then fish them back out of the trash and smooth them on the table, as if flattening the paper could flatten the damage. I have driven to your building and sat in the car across the street, watching people come and go, rehearsing what I would say if I saw you. I would keep it light, I would not cry, I would not reach for you unless you reached first. I would ask about your work, your friends, your life that does not include me. I would not say your name like a rope. I never get out of the car. At night I dream of you as a child because my mind is cruel and practical and knows where it can still find you without resistance. In the dreams you are small and feverish, your hair damp against your forehead, your breath quick and shallow. I sit by your bed counting the seconds between breaths, bargaining with a God I do not believe in. In the dreams you open your eyes and look at me with that trust that was once so complete it frightened me. I wake up with my hands clenched, my mouth full of words that have nowhere to go. I lie there listening to the house settle and tell myself not to call, not to text, not to knock. I tell myself love is patience. I tell myself patience is not the same as abandonment. I talk to you in the car now because the movement makes the words feel less desperate. I narrate my day as if you were there, commenting on the radio, pointing out the absurd billboard, complaining about traffic. I ask questions and answer them myself, doing my best impression of your sarcasm, the lift of your eyebrow I can see even with my eyes on the road. Sometimes I laugh and the sound startles me. Sometimes I pull over because the tears blur the lines and I am afraid of crossing into oncoming traffic, afraid of what it would mean to collide with someone else's life when mine already feels so fragile. There was a time when we were inseparable, when your small hand fit into mine like it had been designed there. We used to make up stories at bedtime, each of us adding a sentence, the plot wandering and looping back on itself. You always wanted the ending to be open, the characters stepping into a future that could be anything. I wanted closure, neat bows, safety. We argued about it even then, laughing, negotiating, compromising. I wonder when compromise turned into surrender, when laughter turned into that tight smile you wore in photographs before you stopped posing with me at all. I know I am not innocent. I know this without needing a list. I know I mistook my fear for wisdom, my control for care. I know there were things you tried to tell me that I could not hear because they threatened the story I was telling myself about who I was as a mother. I know there are moments you remember that I have forgotten, and that forgetting does not absolve me. I know that love does not cancel harm. I know that knowing these things does not unlock your door or your silence. Sometimes hope arrives anyway, uninvited. A wrong number text that makes my heart leap before it sinks. A voicemail that is not you but has the same cadence. A mutual friend who mentions you casually, as if your name were not a live wire. I listen too closely to the tone, the adjectives, searching for signs. Are you happy? Are you angry? Are you thinking of me at all? I pretend not to care, nodding, asking neutral questions, then go home and lie on the floor because standing feels impossible. I imagine a confrontation that never happens. You standing in my kitchen, arms crossed, eyes bright with something between anger and grief. Me standing too close, then stepping back, then sitting because my knees are weak. You listing grievances in a voice that shakes despite your determination. Me listening, actually listening, not interrupting, not defending, letting the words land even when they bruise. Me saying, I didn't know, and meaning not that I am excused but that I am changed by the knowing. I imagine reaching across the table and you not pulling away. I imagine the sound of your laugh returning to the room, tentative, testing the air. I imagine the future loosening its grip. I imagine all of this because imagination is the only place where we still share a space. There are other days when anger flares, hot and humiliating. How can you do this, I think? How can you erase me after everything? I list my sacrifices like a ledger, then hate myself for it. Love is not a transaction, I remind myself. Love does not demand repayment. Love does not keep score. Love waits. Love endures. Love is not supposed to hurt like this, a voice whispers, and another voice answers that perhaps it is, that perhaps this is the cost of caring in a world where children grow into adults with boundaries sharp enough to cut. I keep a photograph of us in my wallet, the edges soft from years of being touched. You are on my shoulders, your hands fisted in my hair, your face split by joy. I take it out in grocery store lines, in waiting rooms, in the bathroom at work when I need to remember how to breathe. I tell myself that girl is still somewhere inside the woman who will not answer me. I tell myself that I am still the woman strong enough to carry her. I tell myself stories because stories have always been how I survive. The seasons turn without consulting me. Leaves pile against the curb, snow makes everything look clean, spring insists on green, summer presses in with its heat. Each change feels like a betrayal, a reminder that time is moving without your permission or mine. I mark your birthday on the calendar and then cross it out because the ache of anticipation is worse than the ache of absence. I bake your favorite cake anyway and give it to the neighbor's kids, smiling too widely as they lick the frosting from their fingers. I go home and wash the pan and let the water run too long. I do not know what you want from me. I suspect that not knowing is part of it. I suspect that certainty was my sin, that I reached for answers like weapons. I am learning, late, how to sit with not knowing, how to let the questions burn without trying to extinguish them. I am learning to say your name without expecting an echo. I am learning to live in a world where love does not guarantee access. Tonight I sit at the kitchen table with the lights off, the city humming beyond the window. I hold my phone and do not unlock it. I let the urge pass through me like weather. I think of the endings we used to argue about, the open ones you loved. I think of characters stepping into a future that could be anything. I do not know if we will speak again. I do not know if silence is a pause or a period.